What if I told you that a policy signed in Sacramento, California, just resulted in a massive drug bust 2,000 miles away in the heart of the Midwest? We are talking about $7 million worth of cocaine, a commercial semi-truck, and two drivers who the federal government says shouldn't even be in this country, yet they were holding valid commercial driver's licenses issued by the state of California. If you think what happens in Gavin Newsom's California stays in California, you need to wake up. Because this story proves exactly how state policies are bleeding into the rest of America. So right now, drop a comment telling me what state you re-watching from and if you feel safe driving next to semi-trucks on the highway these days. And if you want the truth about how political decisions are impacting public safety in your backyard, hit that subscribe button, because here at WestEdge, we are covering the stories the mainstream media tries to bury. Trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the federal government is threatening to pull hundreds of millions of dollars from California. Let's get into this. Let me take you to Putnam County, Indiana. It's a quiet place, usually, but this past Saturday, Indiana State Police pulled over a massive semi-truck. Making a long-haul trip from Joplin, Missouri, to Richmond, Indiana. It seemed like a routine stop, maybe a logbook violation, maybe a speeding ticket. But when troopers started searching the cab, they found something that instantly turned this into a national security incident. Hidden inside the sleeper berth, the place where drivers are supposed to rest, troopers discovered brick after brick of white powder. When they weighed it all out, it was over 300 pounds of cocaine. We're talking about a street value of roughly $7 million. The Department of Homeland Security estimated that this seizure contained enough narcotics to kill more than 113,000 people. Think about that number. That's an entire city's population, wiped out, sitting in the back of a truck cruising down an American interstate. But the drugs aren't even the most shocking part of this story. It's the drivers. The Department of Homeland Security identified the suspects as 25-year-old Gurpreet Singh and 30-year-old Jasveer Singh. They are Indian nationals, and according to federal authorities, both men are living in the United States unlawfully. Yet, at the time of their arrest, both men reached into their wallets and produced valid, active commercial driver's licenses issued by the state of California. Let that sink in for a second. Two men who legally have no right to be in the country were given the highest level of driving certification by Gavin Newsom's administration, allowing them to pilot an 8,000-pound vehicle across state lines while trafficking millions of dollars in narcotics. This bust has immediately intensified a massive, high-stakes standoff between the Trump administration and Governor Gavin Newsom regarding the issuance of CDLs to undocumented migrants. Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin didn't mince words. She released a statement saying, quote, "Thanks to Gavin Newsom's reckless policies, these two criminal illegal aliens were granted commercial licenses by the state of California and were arrested for trafficking a whopping 300 pounds of cocaine inside a semi-truck." Translation: the federal government is directly blaming Newsom's sanctuary policies for putting these drivers on the road. Now, you might be wondering, how does this happen? How do people who entered the country illegally get a license to drive a lethal weapon on the highway? To understand that, we have to look at the background of these suspects, because their history exposes the massive cracks in the system. Let's look at Jasveer Singh, the 30-year-old driver. Officials report he entered the U.S. illegally near Otay Mesa, California, back in 2017. He's been here for years. But here is the part that should make your blood boil. DHS records indicate he was arrested as recently as December 5, just last month, in the San Bernardino area for possession of stolen property. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, did their job. They lodged a detainer request. They asked local California authorities to hold him so he could be processed for deportation. But what happened? Because of California's strict sanctuary state laws, local authorities ignored the ICE detainer and released him back into the community. Let me repeat that. He was in custody in December. ICE wanted him. California let him go, and less than 6 weeks later, he's caught in Indiana with 300 pounds of cocaine. This wasn't an accident. This was a policy choice. If California had honored that detainer in December, that truck never would have been on the road in Indiana. In January, the second driver, Gurpreet Singh, unlawfully entered the country near Lukeville, Arizona, in March 2023 and was subsequently released into the interior. And somehow, in that short time, he managed to secure a California commercial license. This incident is exactly why Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has been warning California officials for months. In fact, Duffy recently issued a stern warning that California risks losing nearly $160 million in federal highway funding if it fails to comply with federal standards. The deadline was January 5th to revoke commercial licenses held by foreign nationals who do not meet federal residency requirements. Duffy stated plainly, California does not have an extension to keep breaking the law and putting Americans at risk on the roads. The federal government is arguing that a commercial license isn't a right, it is a privilege that comes with strict federal oversight because these trucks cross state lines. When California hands out these licenses to people who can't pass a federal background check or who aren't legally present, they are effectively exporting risk to Nevada, to Arizona, to Indiana, and beyond. This Indiana bust isn't an isolated incident, it's part of a terrifying pattern. Federal authorities have pointed to a string of recent fatal accidents involving truck drivers in the country illegally. There was a crash in Florida last August where a driver allegedly made an illegal U-turn, killing 3 people. There were separate fatal incidents in California, Oregon, and Washington state late last year involving Indian nationals facing immigration enforcement. We are seeing a breakdown in the vetting process for the people operating the biggest, most dangerous vehicles on our roads. And every time federal officials try to intervene, they hit a brick wall called California policy. Here's the thing about commercial trucking. It is the lifeblood of our economy. Everything you buy, eat, or wear comes on a truck. We need truck drivers. But because we need them so badly, loopholes have been created, and bad actors are exploiting those loopholes. Cartels and drug trafficking organizations aren't stupid. They know that if California will issue a CDL to someone without verifying their legal status, or checking their background against federal databases, that is the perfect cover for moving product. A valid license is the best camouflage a smuggler can have. It allows them to blend in with the thousands of hardworking, law-abiding truckers who are just trying to do their jobs. By lowering the standards, California isn't helping immigrants. They are providing cover for criminal organizations to exploit the system. Now, let's talk about the political fallout, because this is about to get ugly. The Trump administration is using this specific case as proof that their crackdown is necessary. They are arguing that sanctuary state policies don't just protect undocumented immigrants from deportation. They protect criminals from accountability. When a local jail in San Bernardino releases a guy with a stolen property charge and an ICE detainer, they are saying that the ideology of sanctuary is more important than the safety of the public, and now the people of Indiana are dealing with the consequences. Governor Newsom has defended these policies in the past, arguing that integrating undocumented immigrants into the economy makes communities safer and that state and local police shouldn't be doing the federal government's job. But how do you defend this? How do you look the voters in the eye and say it was a good idea to give a commercial license to a guy who ICE was trying to deport? How do you justify the fact that a California license is now becoming a red flag for law enforcement in other states? This $160 million funding threat is real. The Department of Transportation is saying that if California doesn't scrub its database and revoke these licenses, the money stops. That's money for bridge repairs, for pothole filling, for highway expansion. Newsom is playing a game of chicken with the federal government, betting that they won't actually pull the funding because it would hurt the state's infrastructure. But with a bust of this magnitude, $7 million in cocaine, the political pressure to act is going to be overwhelming. And think about the honest truckers out there. No, we have a lot of truckers watching this channel. You guys go through hell to keep your licenses. You deal with physicals, random drug tests, strict logbook regulations, weigh stations, and background checks. If you mess up, you lose your livelihood. How does it make you feel knowing that the state of California is handing out the same credential you worked so hard for 2 people who broke federal law just to get into the country? It devalues the profession. It undermines the safety culture that the trucking industry has built over decades. It's a slap in the face to every legal driver on the road. What we are witnessing is the collision of ideology and reality. The ideology says everyone deserves a license and law enforcement shouldn't ask questions about immigration status. The reality is 300 pounds of cocaine in a sleeper berth in Indiana. The reality is dead bodies on highways in Florida and Washington. The reality is that rules exist for a reason. When you start eroding the rule of law in one area like immigration, it inevitably erodes the rule of law in other areas like commercial transportation safety. So where does this go from here? Both Jasveer and Gurpreet Singh are currently in custody in Indiana facing charges related to drug trafficking. ICE has lodged new detainer requests for both of them, but the bigger battle is happening in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. The Trump administration is likely to use this case as Exhibit A in a lawsuit against California's sanctuary policies. They might move to federalize commercial licensing standards completely, stripping states of the power to issue CDLs if they refuse to follow federal guidelines. Newsom is going to have to decide whether he wants to die on this hill. Does he protect the policy and lose the highway funding? Or does he admit that maybe, just maybe, handing out commercial licenses to people with active ICE detainers wasn't the brightest idea? This story isn't about politics. It's about public safety. It is about whether you can trust that the 18-wheeler in the lane next to you is being driven by someone who has been properly vetted, who follows the laws, and who isn't carrying a shipment of poison that could kill 100,000 people when a state government decides that its political posturing is more important than national security. Innocent people pay the price. Today, it's a drug bust. Tomorrow, it could be something much worse. We are going to be following this story incredibly closely. We want to see if California actually revokes these licenses. We want to see if the federal government actually pulls that $160 million in funding. And we want to see if Governor Newsom finally addresses the fact that his state's licenses are being used to facilitate major drug trafficking operations across the United States. So, one more time, I want to hear from you. Do you think California should lose federal highway funding if they refuse to revoke these licenses? Should states be allowed to issue commercial licenses to undocumented immigrants? Drop that comment right now because I read every single one and I want to know where you stand. And if you made it this far, you clearly care about the truth behind the headlines. So do me a favor, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand what is really happening on our highways and how policies in California are affecting safety in your state. The decisions being made today will impact millions of families for years to come. Stay safe, stay alert, and keep watching.